Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock. Let's go over the market. Let's talk about what is happening to end off this, spicy week that we had, of course. And I'll give you my thoughts moving forward. So yeah, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts in the charts, etc. Well, again, guys, I do have my YouTube membership, private YouTube membership, where again, I share all my thoughts, post updates every single day as the market is trading. We'd love to have you there. If you want to join, again, the link is down in the description below. Click this first link over here. You get taken to this page. And of course, for $3 a month, you can access to all my posts, updates, etc. Mainly on Tesla stock, but of course also including broader market updates as well. $5 includes NVDA, and then $7 USD a month includes everything else. All my tier 3 posts on YouTube membership section, where I include pretty much every other stock in the market when there's obviously something worth talking about or a nice setup potentially, forming. And you get access to my private Discord. We have a chat room there for tier 3 members, and I do chart requests every single Sunday with members there as well. But jumping into it, Tesla closing the day with a nice respectable, we'll say even 2.5% on the day, closing at just shy of $440. Very important level. We'll go over that very carefully today, of course. MACD officially printing that first higher low. Like I mentioned, as we start getting closer to this potential breakout, I would expect the MACD to start printing that higher low. We are getting that. So there's good signs developing, right? So moving forward, right, you can see Tesla consistently kept holding this trend line, a little bit, albeit a little messy, but you can see each time for the most part, right, it's kind of making higher lows, right, slight higher lows. It could be a little cleaner, but, not too shabby overall. Nice potential, bullish engulfing candle here as well. Still this sort of rising triangle pattern. There's a lot of good kind of potential building up here for Tesla stock moving forward. So let's see how this actually plays out going into next week, right? But the main thing is still, 440, guys. We need 440. Go to the 15-minute chart, right? We kind of, or slash 441, of course. But, we need to essentially break past this and start holding above that. We got a smidge little, kind of tapping our toe on the water over here. Instantly got smacked back down. But, there's a reason for that. I'll go over that really, really soon. I talked to my members about that already. But, essentially above 440 slash 441, getting 5, 15, 1 hour candle closures. Obviously, the higher, the better. And I think we should start seeing a rally into earnings. Now, again, I specifically say into earnings, right? Into earnings, because nobody knows what will happen after earnings. Nobody knows how it's going to happen, what's going to happen after earnings. Nobody knows. You don't know. I don't know. Your dog doesn't know. Nobody knows. But what I am pretty confident is the fact that if we do break above this level and start especially turning it into a very blatant support as opposed to a resistance, which seems like the stock wants to do that. You can see even today we're kind of printing this sort of higher low time frame here with a smaller kind of rising triangle pattern, or you can even argue the fact that this is a bit of a cup and handle pattern setting up, whatever, right? The point is the fact that we are setting up pretty nicely here going into next week. But again, we still need that break, of course, right? That obviously still needs to happen. So it's not like guaranteed, right? It's not like this is 100% going to happen. We still need that confirmation, but it's looking good. It's looking good, right? It's definitely looking like the bulls want to send this into earnings. Like I said, above those levels, I do believe that Tesla makes its way up to about this sort of vicinity right around here. Again, close to 460, maybe slightly below, maybe slightly above. Again, I don't have exact like, it'll hit 460, 69. No, right? Around 460, give or take a few dollars, right? Give or take a few dollars, right? You can argue the first level will be 455, roughly around here, with the highest point being closer to 465. But somewhere in this general vicinity is my target. So let's see how that plays out. Let's see what, actually kind of forms from this. But I do like the fact that you have a bullish engulfing and a higher low in the MACD. Those are, in my opinion, positive signs above the EMA, still holding the trend line and getting extremely close to that breakout. Now, I mentioned that this is going to be a crucial level, right? This 440. Why didn't it break? Like, what's happening with 440? Well, let me go ahead and bust out two things, actually. That's one. I want to bust that out quickly. And then I also want to bust out, where the hell is this thing? Was it this one? Yeah, it was this one. So, you can see today's expiration 10/17, which is obviously today, right? You have to remember, if you don't know, right, the way options work is pretty much every third Friday of every single month is when the vast majority of options expire. Because, if people are buying calls, selling calls, essentially if anyone's actually interacting with options, most people interact with them on a monthly basis, right? So, a month out, 2 months out, 3 months out, 4 months out, right? Most people will usually go for the third Friday of every single month. That's just how it is, right? That's the most liquid. It's just, like everyone does that. So it's very high liquidity, and it's just how it goes, right? I don't have like a PhD in this. I can't give you a full breakdown as to why, but essentially all you need to know is the third month of every month. That's obviously today. But you can see, looking at the screenshot here, if I zoom in a little bit, let me make sure nothing is getting blocked. You can see right here, right? You can see these kind of green bars, right? Those are calls, right? Those are call walls, even arguably you can call them, right? So the point is the fact that you can see there's one really big one over here at what is this, 450, but you can see there's a pretty large one here that we're pretty much right at 440, right? So in other words, there's a call wall pretty much at 440. And the market does not want to end the stock, especially on the third Friday of every single month, in this case today, of course, above that call wall, because then those options end in the money. And the market, well, they want to make money, don't they? Right? The market usually likes to sell options against these things, right? So if it ends below 440, so imagine if you're selling calls at 440, let's say you have 100 shares, let's say you have 1,000 shares, let's say you have 1,000,000 shares, and you sold 440 calls against Tesla. You probably want that thing to end below 440, don't you? That's the ideal scenario now, isn't it? And that's exactly kind of what's happening here, right? So that's kind of why every time we're, tapping that sort of 440 region, we're just not really getting above that, especially today, and this week, because that call wall exists. Now that it's gone, it should theoretically, of course, free up some potential room for Tesla to maybe next week get above that. Now, obviously, I prefer still using candles. I prefer still using price action to give me that kind of confirmation I like to look for, right? But that's kind of a very simple explanation as to kind of, why that's kind of playing out the way it is, if that makes sense. So worth understanding, and at the very least, somewhat understanding how that kind of works, right? Again, I'm not amazing at this, right? I don't really trade off of options, but that's kind of like my, fairly basic understanding of it personally. Now, going over here, I also want to quickly talk about next week being earnings, right? Next week is a big week. We have a huge earnings report on Tesla. The market's currently expecting about a 7 to 8% move on Tesla stock. So from 2 days closure at 439, that means the market, again, this is from 2 days closure. I'll revisit this when we are talking about this, literally the day right before earnings, or right before earnings, essentially. The market is currently expecting about, again, a 7 to 8% move, which essentially from today's price essentially implies the fact that Tesla can go up to about 470 to as low as close to about 410 to 400. That's currently the market's expectation. So just, worth understanding that what the market's currently pricing in. It doesn't mean it'll go to one of those two. It's just that's what the market's pricing in. It could also go above those. It can go below those, right? It's not obviously a guaranteed, but the options market is currently pricing in, again, about a 7 to 8% move on earnings. So worth understanding and kind of, maybe taking that into some level of consideration. But for the most part, the simple picture is the fact that, we break above 440, 441, turning back into support. And I do think that we're off on our way all the way back up to this sort of 460s region into earnings. I do think it'll happen into earnings. However, below that, if we start losing crucial levels, for instance, right, if in my opinion, even just losing this sort of 435-ish range would already be not a bad sign, but a sign that maybe the bulls aren't as strong as we had hoped, for instance. But the main level to look out for on the 1 hour, for instance, is, well, again, we're continuing to hold and show support right around this general vicinity, right? So that mid to lower end of the 420s region, we're constantly getting bounces from there over and over and over. If we reject from here and then also break down below, that's the bear case, right? That'll be very, very bearish. And I think Tesla at the very least will make its way down to my lower targets, which, like I said, if that were to happen, if we were to lose those levels, lose this trend line, very blatantly close down below that, right? You can see we kind of went down below it intraday, but we never closed below that. But closing below those key levels I just mentioned, essentially the low 420s roughly on the 1 hour, the daily, right, for obvious reasons, like I just pointed out, would signal, in my opinion, a gap fill back down to around this sort of 395-ish gap, all the way back down to about the sort of 360s to 370s. So let's see, guys, let's see. But you have to remember, even if we rally into earnings to 460, that doesn't mean that we still can't go back down after that, right? Because we could maybe potentially be printing this, kind of a, maybe, I don't know, a large bear flag or something like that, right? Earnings is unpredictable. The point I'm just trying to make is the fact that if we rally into earnings, I will be more cautious. Absolutely, right? That's just how I like to, do it, I guess. And I will probably be selling calls, very safe calls, but calls nonetheless against my long-term shares as well. If I see 460 roughly before earnings as well, that's just what I'll be doing, right? Again, they'll be pretty safe. That's probably at least 600. So, but that's kind of the main thing I'm looking at for Tesla stock right now. And that's kind of the main thing I'm seeing right now overall. So let's see how this overall plays out, right? If we take the Fibonacci's, if this is indeed, let's say this is actually just going to be a bearish bounce. Yeah, the Fibonacci's and the green Fibonacci's, look where they are, right at 460. So there is a chance that we get something like this still, right? That is completely a possibility. So it's just worth understanding all avenues of possibilities here. Short term, you have a potential bullish setup coming up into what could be a bearish rejection down lower, right? That's a possibility. It's a very realistic possibility. So let's take it day by day. But earnings will be the major catalyst that'll determine if that's the case or that's not the case. So that's kind of what I got for you guys. Very quickly, going over SPY, still stuck within this range. Again, above about 667, give or take a few dollars, or below about 653, also give or take a few dollars, is pretty much the main levels to watch for, right? And until we snap one of these two, the market's not really going anywhere. Now, there is a chance that this is just also a bear flag, of course. There's always these risks here, here, right? The market has definitely lost momentum that it was very much in before. Very nice trend line that was holding up. EMAs were just very nicely bullish. Now, you know, we're not really getting as bullish, still bullish, but not as bullish EMAs. They're now kind of, you know, a lot closer together. They're kind of curling downwards a little bit, right? They're not crossing bearish, so it's not like we're in, you know, bear territory by any means, but the momentum has definitely shifted, right? The momentum has definitely shifted back to kind of a more neutral state here, especially as the VIX is still very, well, not as elevated. Very nice drawdown on the VIX here, obviously, but still pretty elevated, guys. It's still at 20. That's still pretty high, right? That's definitely not the, you know, it needs to go below this for sure. It needs to go back down below, at or below this circled area right here, for, you know, the market to finally get some breathing room and make its way higher, you know, slowly but surely. So that's also worth understanding. But all in all, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow or Monday. Peace.